Well, hello to everyone. Welcome to the Cryptid Chronicles, and this is your host, Ryan Edwards. I'd like to welcome all you guys today and say sorry again for last night. I know we missed our upload, but I'm trying to make up for it today. And I do have a little bit of a special episode for you guys. Well, it is just me. I don't have a guest scheduled for tonight or today, but hopefully that doesn't ruin the episode. So, today's episode, we're planning on talking about, well, cryptids of Texas. The menagerie of unknown creatures that I've seen here in my home state. It's a we're going on a safari ride that you guys have never seen before. Uh, Paranormal safari Texas style, you might say. One of mysteries and some some horror, but mostly just a lot of weird stuff seen here in the state. And now going over it, we do want to talk about the number of cryptids seen here. And of course, Texas is a larger state, so we have a lot more types of cryptids seen here in the state. We have, of course, Sasquatch sightings, Thunderbird sightings, Black Panthers, but we also have some cryptids that are kind of home state favorites, you might say. Uh, the creatures like the chupacabra, you might say, the lechuza, Big Bird, other creatures like that, Lake Worth monster, and we will be going over those in a wee bit. But let's go over maybe the major ones people think of when they think of cryptids in Texas. Well, major one for sure is Bigfoot. Texas is actually one of the top five states of Bigfoot sightings here in the United States, only behind maybe of course California, Oregon, Washington State, Ohio, and I believe also Florida. But we're one of the top five because East Texas is great for Bigfoot sightings. Anyone that's here from Texas or maybe has driven through Texas before will realize that East Texas is almost nothing but swamp and river bottoms. And that's a perfect environment for some type of large predator or omnivore. The East Texas population of black bears is very high, and most people use black bears as an indicator species for Sasquatch. So if we have black bears indigenous to an environment, we might also have possibly Bigfoot. But it doesn't necessarily correlate one to one. It's not like you're saying, "Oh, I see a black bear in my backyard. Oh, yeah, I have Bigfoot in my backyard." It doesn't exactly work like that. Just ecologically, it doesn't work like that. But it might be an indicator species. East Texas has a long history of Bigfoot sightings. You have multiple names of creatures out there. Woolly boogers, the Sabine thing. Even up in Arkansas, of course, you have the famous Falk monster, Falk, Arkansas. And that's less than 100 miles away from the East Texas border. And of course, East Texas is also well known for the Texas Bigfoot Research Conference, based up in Jefferson, Texas. And if you actually look at the BFRO website, of course, BFRO website, some people have some issues with the BFRO. Me personally, I don't really have an opinion on it. It does collect data, which is always helpful. But it does also show that Marion County of East Texas is one of the number one counties for Bigfoot sightings. Has almost 20 or 30 that are on record, but I bet there's even hundreds more that are not on record. When you go to East Texas and go to these conferences and go and talk to people, you realize there are a lot more sightings than people ever realize. There's vocalizations, there's road crossing sighting, there are phenomena of people even shooting at these creatures. So East Texas is fairly well known for Bigfoot sightings up and down the Sabine River. And of course, what they say and quote from the Legend of Boggy Creek, they always follow the creeks. The riverways and waterways in East Texas are really big. You have the Sabine River, the Trinity River. You have Red River tributaries that go south in East Texas. So of course these creatures will likely follow these riverways and hence move throughout East Texas using these rivers. And of course the Big Ticket area. You have the Big Ticket forest in East Texas, and that's even known as the Big Ticket area Bigfoot sightings. Even Sam Houston State Forest, which is a state forest here in the state, actually has a Bigfoot statue in it, indicating the amount of this Bigfoot sightings are out there. And even if you go out of East Texas, there are more Bigfoot sightings throughout the state. You have here in Central Texas, you have the Hill Country, and of course, last week we had on my friend Rob Nichols of Bear County Bigfoot, and there was Bigfoot sightings actually here in San Antonio and up in even the Austin area. And Hill Country, for what I do not know, it's a topographical area where it's known for hollers, not mountains or anything like that, but more hilly areas where people might not be able to get to. And of course, it is both. It is on the north side and the south side by two large cities, Austin and San Antonio. But in the middle, it's nothing, almost nothing but wilderness. And this area is well known for several Bigfoot sightings. You have some major ones of people seeing them cross roads, or remember one on the BFO website said one woman was driving and she saw one on the side of the road. Is there a possibility of Bigfoot living in the hill country? It's a possibility. Or maybe even like what we brought up last week, with our podcast last week, is that maybe they might travel through that area, almost like a migration pattern. So what these creatures are doing there, we have no idea. There's even Bigfoot sightings in South Texas, in places like Del Rio and Brownsville, there's sightings of Bigfoot. So Sasquatch is a fairly well-known creature around here in Texas, and of course Sasquatch itself, name recognition always gets attention. And now let's see, talk about maybe the more lesser-known cryptids that might be seen here in Texas. Of course, one major one is a thunderbird. Thunderbird sightings are fairly prevalent throughout Texas, especially in the 1970s and 80s. We had a large flapper sightings in northern Texas and southern Oklahoma. Almost dozens and dozens of people saw large black birds flying in the sky, and some even reported more dinosaur-looking creatures, more akin to like a pterosaur, we might say. What these creatures are, we are not sure, but they are sightings here in Texas. One major one that had took place was actually on the south side of San Antonio, my hometown. Uh, three the school teachers were driving on the south side of San Antonio, heading to school, and on a field they looked on a field and they saw a large creature flying. Now, of course, school teachers they might be a little bit more informed than most people. They looked, but they couldn't identify what this creature was. Was it a turkey vulture? That's very common here. It wasn't. Wasn't an eagle. It wasn't a falcon. So they couldn't identify it. So once they got to school, they looked in most ornithology textbooks, things like that, and couldn't find any birds that they recognized until they opened up the paleontology book and they saw a pterosaur, maybe more akin to a pteranodon, and that is what they said they saw. So, with that, you must question: are there some type of living pterosaur here in Texas? And of course, we had on a couple of weeks ago Jason McLean, a good friend of mine, and he had his own living pterosaur sighting up in North Texas. But that's more of a rhamphorhynchid pterosaur. What they describe as more of a pteranodon-like creature with a large crest. Rhamphorhynchoids do not have crests. Well, at least that we know of in the fossil record. So that brings up a lot of questions with these living pterosaurs of Texas. Like, are they some type of living prehistoric creature that survived for 65 million years? Is it some type of creature that maybe has traveled through time? Like there supposed stories of time vortexes and things traveling through portals, which I do not do my research into, but it's a possibility. We don't know. With the world of physics and quantum physics and all that out there, no telling. But there are these pterosaur sightings here in Texas. One major event that actually took place is in South Texas, back in Brownsville. We had the Big Bird incident back in the 80s, back in the 90s. Of course, what happened was people in Brownsville and South Texas were seeing some type of strange winged creature flying in the skies. What they described is there's a menagerie of descriptions actually. Some described it as a large bird with black wings. Some described it as a large bat-like creature. Others even described it as like a flying humanoid, but it was fuzzy, you could say. Hence the name like bat squatch they use nowadays. But at all the common denominator of these sightings is some type of winged creature. Whether it's just some type of giant bird or a pterosaur-like creature, or maybe even a some type of large bat. But these sightings they occur for several months in Brownsville and South Texas until they just suddenly stopped. And local newspapers started calling this creature Big Bird. Of course, Big Bird based on the Sesame Street character, but this creature is no Sesame Street character. It was supposedly vicious and scary, and it attacked people. One man was actually attacked in his own front yard by this creature and picked up and flew in several feet into the air. And that's very reminiscent of the Marlon Lowe incident out in Illinois. The young boy is picked up by a large black bird and picked up into a couple feet up in the air and then dropped. Of course, the boy was not killed, thankfully, but this shows some type of almost like predatory behavior of these large winged creatures. And of course, us humans have a fear of winged things, things that can fly, things that can do things we cannot. And of course, flying is one of them. If people see a large shadow along the ground and they notice something casting that shadow, a certain animalistic fear encroaches into our hearts. And of course, people believe that might be from even our prehistory. Back in the day, back in prehistory, we were hunted by creatures with wings. The tongue child of Africa was discovered. This was a young Australopithecine. And it shows that this Australopithecine, one of our early ancestors, was actually picked up and killed by some type of eagle, most likely an African golden eagle. And now, with that, we show that there is a prevalence and a precedent for our fear of winged creatures, whether it's from the dragons of medieval age to giant birds of like the rook of Arabian mythology, or even the elephant birds of Madagascar, which might be even based on the rook, might even be based on those creatures because the elephant birds had large eggs, and of course, people might have found those eggs and thought it was some type of giant winged flying bird. But there's a precedent of us of our fear with these creatures, and even like the flying humanoid phenomenon. Flying humanoid phenomenon is very common here in Texas. You have you have the Houston Batman and other creatures that have been seen around Texas that fly and are unknown. And of course, in northern Mexico, you have stories of like the Bruja, the witches that fly in the sky. These flying humanoids are ones I've seen that truly flying humanoids. They don't have wings. It's like almost like a person flying in midair. Something almost like reminiscent of a superhero movie or something like that. But these things are not superheroes, you can say. They are truly appear to be evil and malicious in intent. The stories of them attacking people or even attacking police officers. So these flying creatures are seen throughout Texas. Usually southern Texas, especially with large Hispanic culture. They have stories of these. Even lechuza is like a flying witch. And the lechuza, the owl witch, is a particular creature from Mexican mythology. Stories of a witch that can turn into an owl. And of course, owls have a long and peculiar history with folklore. They can be seen as wise or as caring creatures in some, and others as more malicious or even creatures that are meant to carry the dead to the afterlife. So with the owl, there are mixed opinions, almost like very similar to wolves. Wolves can be seen as protectors in some culture, and others as malicious, almost demons or malefactors. So with these owls, these lechuzas, it's truly some type of evil being. Their stories have been being able to like curse families or even especially curse children. People that see these lechuzas, which actually I have a story from here in my neighborhood. A friend of our families, they were one day when they were a child, they were in one of the homes in my neighborhood, and they were looking out a window and they saw this large owl, which here in the middle of San Antonio, you don't really see a lot of owls. and they saw this guy as a large black owl, but its back was facing them. So once they started looking at it and started kind of questioning it, suddenly the creature turned its head, and of course Allison turned her head 90 degrees. Its head was facing it, and the face was not an owl's face. It was the face of a woman, almost like a hag or like an old witch. And of course, after that, the head turned back and it flew off. This is exactly how people describe these lechuzas, of like an owl with a woman's face, a witch's face, you might say. And it's very akin to almost like the skinwalker, the Yinahulushi of Navajo culture. Navajo believe that the skinwalker can become different creatures, and then these are witches that can transform into creatures and then curse people or be just malicious to a family, something like that. These lechuzas can do almost the same thing, but their particular creature they turn into is the owl. But these transformations are almost not complete. You have other human-like characteristics. Now, what these lechuzas are based on, that's the question. Because, of course, a woman turning into an owl, it's very unlikely. That's very kind of hard to believe. So, could there be maybe some type of large unknown owl indigenous to Texas? Could there be some type of weird, peculiar bird that's being seen at night that people don't know of? And of course, there's still also stories of weird and strange owls throughout the world. You have the Owlman of Cornwall, England, of Monan. Back in the 1970s, you had sightings of some of an anthropoid owl, half human, half owl creature. And with this being, you had also other peculiar phenomena. You had animals acting strange and peculiar. You had cats attacking people out of nowhere. You had birds flying into walls and killing themselves. You had a high amount of even Black Panther sightings and lake monster sightings during this flap of sightings of the Owlman. So these stories of weird owls occurred throughout the world, and it might even connect to this La Chusa incident occurring here in Texas. So there are a lot of weird flying creatures flying above our Texas skies. And now let's go a little bit down to the closer to the ground, shall we? A little bit more less aerial creatures. Let's talk about maybe the chupacabra. Of course, the chupacabra is very big here in Texas, and its stories go back a long, long time, and with Hispanic stories, supposedly. But really, the true name of the chupacabra only originated back in the 1990s, thanks to back in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, of course, the stories go, their local killings of sheep, goats, chickens, things like that, of some type of weird vampiric creature. An animal that killed these animals but did not eat them. It just drank the blood, it appeared like. Just two puncture holes in the neck, and that was it. And there was a large amount of these killings, almost something that was supernatural in appearance. Like a natural predator would not do this. So people started calling it the chupacabra. Of course, chupacabra, if you look at the etymology, means goat sucker. Of course, the sucking of blood is a prevalent appearance within chupacabra incidents. But see, with the chupacabra, of course, it's not a physical creature's descript. It's just a description of behavior. It's not truly a physical creature that's being described as just a chupacabra. Because the Puerto Rican incidents of the chupacabra, people saw a weird creature, but described it almost like a extraterrestrial-like creature with spines down its back, large oval head, oval almond-shaped eyes, almost kangaroo-like legs, and some even reported wings. So, in my opinion, I believe a lot of these Puerto Rican chupacabra sightings might could be chopped up to just mass hysteria. Of course, mass hysteria is an occurrence within human psychology and human sociology that people become afraid of something, so they kind of their fear overcomes logic, and especially within a group. Multiple people just become so afraid they start saying almost anything. It's almost like over Wells and War of the Worlds. People thought we were being invaded by space aliens just because of a radio show. That's a great example of mass hysteria. But with these cryptid sightings, there's also small times of mass hysteria. And I believe this chupacabra might have been that back in Puerto Rico. But of course, back in the 2000s, we had the chupacabra sightings here in Texas. But this chupacabra was described differently. What they describe here in Texas, they describe it as what we call a Texas blue dog. Well, that name was coined by a friend of mine, Ken Gerhard, at Phil's Canyon, down in Cryptids, Texas, maybe less than an hour's drive south of San Antonio. This Texas blue dog is a very much another peculiar creature. What they describe it as is a canine that's hairless, with blue to black skin, long muzzle, and very sharp canines. This creature supposedly was drinking the blood and killing chickens out in South Texas. Places like Elmendorf and Cuervo and Del Valle and other small cities in South Texas. Most people just suspected this creature to be maybe just a rabid coyote, or coyote with mange. But of course, with mange, it's a mite. It's a some type of infection that animals get. They start scratching the skin, and the rapid scratching causes hair follicles to fall out. So when you find an animal with mange, you find some hair fragments still on them. These chupacabras that are being found in South Texas do not have any hair at all. No hair follicle was ever present. So this isn't mange. This is some type of new mutation, genetic mutation that's coming out phenologically. And of course, if you look at the DNA of these Texas blue dogs, you can show that they are a mix of Mexican red wolf and American coyote. Now, this has also occurred in the past. These animals are usually called coy wolves, coyote wolf hybrids. But this weird mutation is not occurring anywhere else in nature. It's only occurring here in Texas. So, could this be because some type of outside environmental change? Could it be maybe a new step in adaptation? Maybe this hairless trait helps with maybe retaining heat or keeping heat from them and retaining cold. We do not know, or maybe it's just a one-off. But there are several other chupacabra sightings and Texas blue dog sightings here in Texas. You hear them all the time, unless these are just coyotes with mange. But we are not sure what this Texas blue dog is. If it is a hybrid and there are not more of them, then you can't classify it as a new species. We need to classify a new species as it can procreate by itself. Hybrids cannot. Like a mule cannot have progeny in and of itself because it's a hybrid. And if these Texas blue dogs are just hybrids, then they are not a new species. They are just a new hybridization of two known species. And with these chupacabra sightings, they are rapid here in Texas, but especially South Texas. But also, there are a lot more other large major cryptid seen in Texas that not a lot of people know about. Of course, you have one phenomenon that occurs around the world and that also occurs in Texas, the Pantera atrox phenomenon. And of course, the Pantera atrox phenomenon describes unknown felines being seen around the world. These cryptic felines, you might call them. And of course, a lot of them seen as black panthers. Yeah, you have black panther sightings around Texas. Actually, recently I was talking to an eyewitness here in Texas that saw a black panther fairly close to my hometown, San Antonio. And people describe these creatures as almost looking like a mountain lion or a jaguar, but with black fur. And of course, you don't have anything like that indigenous to the area. You don't have any black panthers indigenous to Texas or even the United States. A black panther is only a black melanism. That is what's called melanism. Is when the fur comes out black. Only occur in two known species: leopards and jaguars. But these black jaguars are only known from the Amazon. They have not been seen outside of a small location inside the Amazon. So how are these creatures being seen here up in Texas and even throughout the United States? That's the question here. Are they some type of new species? Are they a nowinistic lion, a mountain lion? Because even mountain lions, they are becoming a little bit more prevalent here in Texas. They're entering areas that they weren't indigenous to until recently. But there are now known melanistic mountain lions. There are no melanistic cougars ever recorded in history. So these Black Panther sightings, are they maybe a new recording of black melanistic mountain lions? Are they some type of maybe exotic species that was released into the wild? Because we know that does occur several places around the world. Back in the 1960s, out in the UK, you have they had a release of several wild panthers. Because back in the 1960s, that was very common for people to have wild cats as as a pet almost. They had lions, tigers, cheetahs especially, and a lot of black panthers. Lion, black mountain lion. They would have mountain lions, black panthers, which black panthers in and of themselves is not a species. That's either a black leopard or a jaguar. People had these creatures, but then once an ordinance came out in the UK that had a higher tax for these creatures and made it illegal almost to own these animals, a lot of owners owned up to it and said they released their animals out to the wild. And of course, these cats became a population out in the UK and now seen nowadays it's like the beast of Exmoor, beast of Rodmanmore, beast of the Surrey Puma. Now, could the same thing be occurring here in the United States? Of course, here in the United States, the exotic pet trade is very common. Heck, there's more wild tigers in Texas than there are in India. And that's a recent study shown that there's a lot of wild tigers and lions and other exotic pets here in the United States. So are these owners releasing these creatures and not letting anyone know, and they're just running amok out in our natural environments? I'll say that's a possibility, but that brings up a question. If they are releasing these animals into the wild, why are we only seeing black panthers then? Why aren't we seeing lions and tigers and other large exotic animals that we should not see, like grizzly bears? Why is black panthers? Which that's just kind of the peculiar thing to this phenomenon. Unless it could be maybe some type of ballistic lion. Sure about this, folks. I'm kind of tired this morning trying to make sure I get this podcast out there because I want to make sure there's content for you guys. I want to make sure there's stuff coming out there, keeping you guys entertained. Hopefully, you guys are being informed and entertained here. Sorry that it's just me. My co-host wasn't able to make it, and I didn't have any guests lined up for this week because I just got pretty busy with work and things like that. But I want to make sure I'm trying to make sure this podcast keeps going with you guys. And I do have a couple people hopefully lined up for the next few weeks. So it'll be an interesting couple of shows coming up for you guys. But with these cryptids of Texas, there are plenty of unknown creatures seen here in Texas. Of course, we talked about earlier with Bigfoot, Chupacabra, Thunderbird sighting, things like that. But of course, one of the most famous cryptids that's being seen in Texas nowadays is a newer cryptid on the scene is of course the Dogman. These Dogman sightings are occurring across Texas, and this is only in recent decades. Of course, the Dogman phenomenon started up in Wisconsin and Ohio, Michigan, the American Midwest. You have the Beasterbury Road, the Michigan Dogman, the Loop Guru of Louisiana. But now you have these Dogman sightings that entering Texas. My friend up in a fellow podcaster and friend, Josh Wolf Turner, up in the Paranormal Roundtable. He has several Dogman accounts that occurred just within 100 miles of San Antonio, Texas, and Austin, Texas. These Dogman phenomena, and strange as occurring here in Texas because we don't have any real history of these werewolf creatures being here, unless you go back in history and here in a place called Converse, Texas. Converse is actually a part of San Antonio, Texas. And it's only maybe a 30-minute drive from my home. The Converse werewolf. The story goes back in either the 1800s or early 1900s. A man and his son were on a farm. The son wasn't the most bravest of kids. He was one that kind of didn't want to go hunting, didn't want to go work, things like that. So, of course, in the 1800s, that was kind of an issue. Men kind of raised their boys to be tough and things like that. So, one day, the father told his son to go out hunting. His son didn't want to, of course. Was he was rebellious, but ultimately he agreed with his father. So he went out, went hunting, looked for, I believe, it was squirrels. He went squirrel hunting. About an hour or two later, he comes running back home, afraid and scared of something. And he tells his father, "I'm not going in those woods. There's some type of monster. There's a wolf out in those woods." And of course, even at this time in Texas, wolves were already extinct. So the boy told his father to go back there and get him some squirrels and come back. And of course, the boy was, "I'm not going back out there. I'm not going back out there." But of course, the father made him go back out. So the son left and go hunting again, and was never seen. The father didn't know this would be the last time he would see his son alive. Later that night, the sun had already gone down, and the father was worried. Of course, his son should have been back by now. You don't go hunting after dark. You don't go out there with a gun. So his father went out there looking for his son, and in the field, the story goes, he found his son mangled to bits. Something had killed him. And supposedly he's seen something else. He's seen a creature, what he described as a wolf, but a wolf that was walking on two legs. Something akin to like a werewolf was standing over his son's body and was feeding upon him. So this shows that this creature had killed his son. And this is what his son was afraid of. This wolf that was walking in the woods. So soon enough, he shot this creature, and the creature ran off away from his son's body. And soon enough, a posse formed, and they went hunting for this creature, and they tried to go after it, and nothing came known from that. No body was found, no animal was reported killed. At least of our modern knowledge, maybe something was, and maybe this was lost to time. But it was just a really weird and peculiar story. Just like this kind of came out of nowhere. And of course, this was in the local stories. It was in the newspapers, things like that. So, is the story true? Maybe we weren't there. But of course, back in the 1800s, a lot of fake and pseudo stories were made up in the newspaper for like ads. People nowadays talk about fake news, but back then that was real fake news. They're making up stories just to add publicity. So could this Converse werewolf be a part of that? Maybe, but there are modern sightings of Dogman even in that area. So there's a story in history that correlates to the modern day, and this is before even the Dogman term was coined. That was only coined until back in the 1990s, thanks to Linda Godfrey. So could there be Dogman creatures here in Texas? It's a possibility. But what are these creatures? That's the question. That's probably a question that would be used for a whole other episode. There might be a 2 hour discussion right there of what these dogman creatures are. Are they natural? Are they some type of natural species that has evolved here on Earth? Are they supernatural? Are they from some type of other dimension or space and time? Something we do not know of. It's it's a lot of questions with this creature and not a lot of answers. So this dogman in Texas, it is just really weird. There's even stories of them. There's stories of them attacking people, them attacking cars, them crossing road crossing sightings like multiple, like Bigfoot. But with this dog man, it's a totally weird phenomenon, totally different from what like Bigfoot and the Black Panthers and other creatures. Because Texas is a large state, it has a lot of wilderness, and of course, with wilderness and animals comes probably unknown species like cryptids. I don't want to say Texas is like a cryptid hotspot, because it's almost like it was meant to be. We have multiple biomes, we have multiple different environments. We have swamps, desert, hills, um, shrubland, deep forests. So there is a mixture of environments. There could be a mixture of unknown species. Bigfoot, to Dogman, Black Panthers, Chupacabras, Thunderbirds, even some lake monster stories that go back and talk about giant catfish that can eat people. This is a weird place, everyone. Weird state. And of course, this is something I'll probably go deeper into with some future guests of mine. I'm trying to get on some guests here in Texas that have done research about these unknown and peculiar creatures. Of course, last week we had Bear County Bigfoot, and he talked about Bigfoot sightings here in San Antonio, Texas, and other peculiar phenomena. I'm trying to get on a couple other podcasters out here in Texas that are a little bit more into detail for me about these unknown peculiar creatures. So with it, I know I have a little bit of knowledge of these cryptids in Texas, but not a lot. So I will be probably cutting this episode short. But if you guys do have any questions or anything like that, this is a live show. So don't be afraid to go out down in the comments and put a comment. If you have a question or anything like that, or anything you might want to hear about in the future, that would also be helpful. What I want to do is I'll maybe like a little questionnaire and ask, hey, what do you guys want to hear about? What particular creatures, cryptids, even phenomena? Because we do, of course, talk about cryptids, it's the Cryptid Chronicles, but we can always go into maybe more paranormal or ufology or anything like that. Because a lot of my other researchers have professions and a lot more knowledge in those fields, so I can bring people on like that. Maybe not just crypto related studies. So if you guys have anything like that, please make sure you put those in the comments. Make sure to go like this video, go like our channel, go subscribe to the channel. That'd be greatly appreciated. I'm trying my best to put out content out there, trying to make sure you guys stay entertained, try to bring on interesting guests. But with my work schedule and with my research, it is can be hard at times. That's why, like for instance, I'm coming to you guys today in Sunday afternoon, not Saturday night. I hate when my schedule does interfere with the podcast, but I'm trying my best to make sure it doesn't. I'm trying to make sure to get on interesting guests, make sure there's interesting topics here, make sure that this podcast grows from here. We are still small, we are still getting viewerships, but I want to make sure we can try to get larger. Ultimately, it is about informing the public and entertaining you guys. So you guys are important to that. So you cryptic chroniclers, I do hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Remember, go like, share, and subscribe to this video. I do enjoy every last one of you guys. Make sure to put a comment down there and talk. Be able to try to talk to me. I love trying to talk to you guys. And if you guys have any weird and peculiar incidents yourselves, or even want to just talk, of course, my email, my social media is also down there. Go follow me on Facebook. Go follow me on Instagram. Go email me if you want to, if you have a question. Please, I am always open to you guys. So don't be afraid to reach out. And second, I do want to promo this. October 14th, October, yeah, October 14th through the 16th is the Texas Bigfoot Research Conference out of Jefferson, Texas. We have several guests going out there. It's run by Craig Woolheater. We have Lauren Coleman, Barton. We have Lauren Coleman. We have Adam Davies. We have Ken Gerhard, Rob Blackbird. And it's also being run by, thankfully, but the Paranormal Roundtable by Josh Wolf Turner. And he has his good friend Bart Nunley coming out of the Inhumanoids. So if you guys can, please go out there and support them. I will be having a table there myself. I am a vendor as well. So if you guys are out in East Texas or available that weekend, the 14th or the 16th of October, please go check out that conference. It is a great great time. You can meet eyewitnesses, meet researchers, even get a couple books signed. So if you guys are out there, please go like and support that conference. Please come on by. So with that, I will be heading off now, guys. I want to say thank you to all that have watched. I want to thank, especially to the people that came to the back. I know at the end of the video, not a lot of people last till the end. It's understandable. I understand you guys. But I want to say thank you all. Have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.